Revealed, the amazing recording that exposed my parents' abandonment transforming my life forever. Jamie's heart raced as she stood alone in her grandmother's attic, surrounded by dust and a lifetime of nostalgia. The air was stale, thick with forgotten dreams. Her fingers grazed an old cassette tape, its surface marred by age. A surge of curiosity pushed her to press play, and then, there they were, the voices she knew so well. Memories flooded back, but these weren't the loving sentiments she remembered. The words were heavy, carrying echoes of pain and struggle that twisted her heart. Every confession, every raw truth spilled onto the tape shattered her belief in her parents' unwavering love. It felt like a betrayal, one that left her reeling and questioning everything. In Maplewood, where community spirit defined daily life, Jamie felt immense pressure to succeed as a journalist. She longed to tell impactful stories that would matter, but the monotony of her current job left her feeling trapped. She'd always imagined herself uncovering the truth behind hidden struggles, yet here she was, paralyzed by her own family's secrets. The conflicting emotions left her feeling hollow, a mix of anger, sadness, and a desperate need for validation consumed her every moment. Who was she if her own narrative had been a lie? As she absorbed the shocking revelations from the tape, the old wounds of abandonment surfaced. Suddenly, behind her ambition, a yearning for recognition loomed larger than before. Torn between confronting her parents and maintaining harmony within her family, every thought was a reminder of her vulnerable reality. Would pursuing the truth ruin everything she'd worked hard to uphold? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jamie felt an inexplicable pull toward uncovering her parents' truths, even if it meant confronting the painful legacy of her life. Determined to gain clarity, she found herself sitting across from Tom, a retired journalist whose own scars shaped his perspective. Their hours-long discussions felt like therapy, with Tom peeling back layers she hardly recognized. Each meeting stirred something deep within her, a mixture of hope and anxiety as she embraced the daunting prospect of betrayal and reconciliation. Rounding the bend to a family gathering, the tension simmered in her chest like hostile fire. Jamie rehearsed her speech, but uncertainty gnawed at her resolve. As she faced her parents, so familiar yet distant, a heavy blanket of anticipation enveloped the room. She drew a breath, each heartbeat a drumroll leading to confrontation. With a shaky voice, she began, but the air crackled with unspoken accusations. Anguish painted her relatives' faces like a darkened canvas, and she felt the swell of fear mingle with determination. Just when it seemed everything might fracture beyond repair, her father stood. His confession hovered in the air, a revelation that twisted the narrative once again. Jamie's mind spiraled, caught between the enormity of that moment and the anger simmering inside. What did forgiveness mean when faced with a truth that could reshape her life yet left her aching? The night stretched on, leaving her wrestling with the uncertainty of her family's history and her own future threatening to pull her under. Would the secrets bind her closer to her family or tear them apart forever? As the echo of his words settled in, Jamie realized she was standing at a crossroads, and her decision would determine the very fabric of her existence. The day after the confrontation, Jamie awoke to sunlight filtering through her curtains, illuminating the chaos of her mind. The world felt unchanged, yet she knew deep down that everything had shifted. The chaotic emotions from the previous night played on repeat in her mind, a relentless reel of confusion and hurt. Memories of her father's confession and the faces of her relatives, each contorted by raw emotion, pushed into the forefront of her thoughts. Her fingers often trembled as she typed out articles at work, a far cry from the ambitious journalist she aspired to be. Instead of uncovering global stories, she penned trivial pieces about local events. Maplewood's farmers market opens for the season, and community garden adds new species. Each headline felt like a weight tying her to monotony while her heart screamed for something more profound. She envisioned herself standing in front of her audience, unraveling stories of struggle to heal, to be heard, to be seen. That afternoon, conducting interviews for her next piece, Jamie caught glimpses of herself in the brightly lit windows of the coffee shop where she worked. The reflection looked familiar yet alien, a testament to the duality of her existence. This life represented comfort, predictability, yet, the discovery of her parents' abandonment left her yearning for authenticity. On her break, the weight of the tape in her bag felt heavier than usual. It beckoned her a reminder of the truths hidden beneath familial facades, the reckoning she had only just begun. Did she dare to listen again? As she paced outside the cafe, Jamie felt a newfound resolution building within her. The introspection coupled with Tom's advice echoed, one must recognize personal demons to find true strength. After the shift, she hurried home, heart pounding with anticipation. In the sanctuary of her room, she dug out the tape, hesitating before pressing play. The voices filled the space again, but instead of fear, she felt a pulse of determination course through her veins. Jamie was ready to embrace her past, every betrayal and heartache, because it was hers to own. Each sentence from the tape became a note in a symphony of her life, the anger transformed into a driving force. Over the next few days, Jamie began reaching out, not just to her parents but to others in similar situations. Online forums, support groups, and conversations with fellow journalists ignited a fire within her. Their stories, their truths became building blocks of her narrative. This personal development began to enrich her work, infusing it with authenticity and compassion. She approached her editor with a proposal for a new series highlighting the struggles of families torn apart by secrets, a chance to give a voice to those who had experienced the same wave of betrayal. But alongside this burgeoning ambition, the conflict remained. If she publicized her family's truth, would it fracture them beyond repair? The moral dilemma clawed at her conscience, each day more insistent than the last. Was it selfish to share her story? Or was it an act of courage, empowering others to embrace their truths? The closer she drew to the edge of her decision, the more anxious she felt. Jamie had now become the embodiment of her work, a journalist poised between the worlds of secrecy and revelation. As she prepared for her first interview for the series, she caught sight of her reflection in the mirror, this time not of confusion, but of fierce determination. It was time to confront more than just her family. It was time to confront the world with her story. And just as that surge of courage ignited within her, she received a call from her father that threatened to shatter her newfound strength, a revelation that hinted at further hidden truths buried beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed. Jamie's heart raced again, the stakes rising higher than ever before. What other secrets lay in wait? The time had come to face the shadows that danced at the edges of her family's story. As Jamie stood in silence, the ringing of the phone echoed in her ears like a haunting reminder of the turmoil that had drawn her to this point. She hesitated before answering, her mind racing through every scenario. What new revelation could her father possibly unveil? Would this discovery shatter the nascent courage she had begun to cultivate? Jamie, her father's voice trembled, an unfamiliar wavering that instantly ignited a sense of dread. It was a sound she had not heard often, vulnerability wrapped in a shroud of fear. I need to talk to you. There's something you don't know. With every word, her heart pounded heavier in her chest, pulsating with trepidation. Jamie clenched her fists, feeling the thin veil of control she had woven over the past few days threatening to unravel. The conversation played out in her mind like a grim prophecy. Let's meet at the coffee shop, she said, her voice steady even as internal chaos threatened to spill over. Something deeper stirred within her, a compulsion to confront this head-on, ground herself in the uncertain revelations awaited. That afternoon, she arrived early, nervously rearranging sugar packets on the table. Each packet became a metaphor for the layers of sweetness and bitterness that defined her connection to her parents. When her father walked in, the weight of his expression echoed the turmoil that had been brewing between them. Their shared silence was deafening, a space filled with unspoken questions that hung heavily between them. Thank you for coming, he said, sliding into the seat across from her, his demeanor brittle. I need to know what you're hiding, Jamie pressed, her voice firm. This was not a child seeking comfort but a journalist poised for clarity. He sighed deeply, eyes averting hers. There were circumstances, so many circumstances that led to your mother and I making choices we thought were best. Her pulse quickened. Best for whom? For you? For me? We both know how that ended. The words came out sharper than intended, yet they were laced with years of pent-up frustration. I know how badly it hurt you, he started hesitantly, but the truth is more complicated than you think. There are family secrets, beyond just our failures to be good parents. The phrase family secrets stirred something indignant within her. She feared the truth might tear away her last remaining pieces of affection, but she also felt emboldened by the possibility of closure. What secrets? She demanded, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the edge of the table. With a mixture of pride and apprehension, her father's gaze finally locked onto hers. Your grandparents, I only learned the truth about them after our separation. It's tied to why we left. Jamie's mind reeled, grappling with the notion of not just being abandoned, but part of a lineage shrouded in secrecy. This redefinition of her narrative felt like a mountainside collapsing, a seismic shift which would force her to reconsider everything she thought she knew. What do you mean? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The indomitable spirit she had cultivated felt fragile in the face of his admissions. He looked down, exhaling slowly as if the burden of revelation weighed heavily on him. There are things you can't ignore. Family history that affects you even today, choices made generations before we were born. Discovery washed over her. This was no longer just about her confrontation with her parents, it had become something broader, reaching back through time, through the tangled branches of history that formed her identity. Then tell me, Jamie urged, a fierce determination mixing with fear. Tell me everything now. With every word that began to flow from his lips, Jamie's career, her family, and her core self collided into new realms of understanding. Every truth he revealed was a twist in the narrative she sought to construct, not just for herself but for the generations who had walked before her. Yet, as she listened intently, there were pieces between his confessions that sent shivers down her spine, unsettling her newly found resolve. With every revelation, the desire to expose these realities through her writing began to clash with a growing anxiety. The anticipation of her series materializing felt more volatile than ever. What else would she need to uncover about a lineage stained with secrets? What would it cost her family's bond, her own peace if she pursued the truth relentlessly? As they sat there bathed in the warm glow of cafe lights, Jamie knew this meeting had changed everything, igniting a fire that could potentially consume the very foundations of her identity. And as her father began to reveal the first secret, Jamie couldn't help but wonder what fallout awaited her on the other side of this family reckoning. Ready or not, the truth was about to come to light. What lay beyond the next revelation would challenge the very essence of what it meant to be Jamie. Every hour that passed felt like layers of ice breaking beneath her feet, each revelation from her father tugging at Jamie's balance, threatening to plunge her into depths she wasn't sure she was ready to confront. The words he spoke ignited a flicker of understanding, yet smothered it with confusion and doubt. Your grandparents, he finally admitted, his voice low but no longer trembling. They were involved in something dangerous. We had to leave to protect you, protect us all. I thought that breaking away from them would mean safety, but it came at a cost, secrets buried deep. Jamie's heart raced. For years, her life had been defined by the echoes of abandonment, the choices of her parents manifested in estrangement and silence. Now, she had to reconcile that with the notion of a family legacy mired in danger. What are you saying? She pressed, her desperation simmering just beneath the surface. What did they do? What did you leave behind? She leaned forward, needing to draw clarity from the confusion. His reluctance to divulge details fanned the flames of her anxiety. If this was a tangled family history, how was she supposed to untangle it for herself, let alone the stories she longed to tell? They were part of something much bigger than us, he admitted, finally piercing through his own hesitation. A network that traded in information, powerful people who had their hands in nefarious business. The day we chose to leave, I knew it meant more than just saying goodbye, it could put a target on our backs. Her pulse quickened as images of shadows and whispers filled her mind. All this time, she only considered her parents' failings, the wounds they inflicted on her, and now she had to reassess their actions in a new light. This revelation reshaped her anger into something distinctly larger, unfamiliar, wrapped in a newfound understanding of her own identity. "This isn't just about you, Dad. It's about what I've inherited because of your decisions." Her tone was assertive, a journalist pushing for something raw and real. "If you just ran, if you didn't face whatever it was, why should I uncover it now? What good will it do?" He exhaled deeply, the sound visceral and riddled with regret. "Because it's not only about history," he said, recapturing her gaze with an intensity that felt like a surge of urgency. "What I didn't realize then was that these secrets they dragged on. It's the reason for your mom's silence. It's what chased us into the shadows, kept the truth buried." A new feeling coalesced within Jamie, determination layered with apprehension. She had already felt the threads of her life unraveling. She could either continue hiding from the darkness of her past, or she could pursue it, piece by piece, unveiling a reality that spoke not only of betrayal but warned of a legacy that could chain her to her forebears. "Then that's it," she murmured, the words slipping out as she gnawed on the implications of what her father was hinting at. If her story was as intertwined with ghosts of the past as her parental arrangements, she had to find a way through this tangled web. "I need to know it all. I have to dig. If there's danger, I need to confront it." The weight of her declaration settled heavily. Her father's silence confirmed the reality she had just embraced, a path adorned with peril but peppered with an irresistible hunger for knowledge. Not just her parents' history, but her own. As Jamie prepared to navigate this newly unearthed legacy, 1,000 possibilities unfurled before her. Could uncovering the truth grant her the clarity she desperately sought, or would it shatter everything she had worked to build? And yet, as the conversation dripped with gravitas, an underlying thrill shot through her. She could become the author of her destiny. With newfound resolve, she resolved to return home and immerse herself in research, but with each step closer to the truth, she sensed shadows lurking around the edges. Would she uncover the hidden talents and insights that might guide her through? The challenge awaited her confrontation with layered family deception, and as she caught her father's final gaze, she sensed that this journey was just beginning. Furthermore, perhaps what she would discover about herself would become the strongest anchor in her rekindled quest for truth. What shocking secrets might emerge as she turned the first pages of a chapter that felt as sinister as it was exhilarating? As she left the cafe, she felt the weight of the past fusing with the urgency of the present, a call to action she could no longer ignore. Would it lead to liberation, or entrapment in cycles she longed to escape? Jamie left the dim cafe, her heartbeat a persistent drum echoing the new resolve coursing through her veins. The urgency of her quest wrapped around her like a frigid mist, igniting an insatiable appetite for truths long obscured. She hurried home, driven by an instinct deep within that she was on the precipice of a vital personal transformation. The creak of her front door seemed to capture the hesitation in her heart. For years, her apartment had served as both sanctuary and prison, sheltering her from the outside world while simultaneously constraining her desires. Now, it felt like a silent witness to the unearthing of her identity, a canvas ready for fierce strokes of discovery. With purposeful strides, Jamie navigated through the clutter she had accumulated. Old notebooks filled with half-formed thoughts lay scattered like forgotten memories. She flipped through them, skimming title stories of love, betrayal, and healing. Today, however, she sought something much deeper than fleeting emotions. She needed to uncover a rich narrative woven into her lineage. She pulled her desk chair closer to the cluttered too-small table, pushing aside a mug bearing the remnants of long-cold coffee, and opened her laptop. The glow from the screen illuminated her furrowed brow, reflecting the sharp focus forming in her mind. Every new word in her father's revelation sparked a question: what exactly were the secrets left behind? Who were these powerful figures? What ultimately drove her grandparents into a realm of danger that had cost them their family? With every keystroke, Jamie began to mold her research plan. Begin with a simple web search. Ancestry records, news articles, anything that might link her family to the loosely defined network her father had mentioned. She found herself oscillating between the fleeting hope of successful discovery and the nagging doubt of what it might reveal. As she worked, the weight of her father's confession replayed in her mind. This wasn't just about her family, it was about setting her narrative free of the chains that bound it. In the search for her grandparents' truth, she recognized an opportunity to redefine her own past, an opportunity to transform pain into a narrative of resilience. Suddenly, her phone buzzing jolted her from thoughts of lineage into the present. It was a text from her father. "Jamie, if you dig too deep, you may unearth more than just stories. Be careful." His warning stirred a complex knot of emotions within her: fear, anxiety, but also a deep-rooted sense of purpose. The moment of truth was approaching, and she could feel the tendrils of familial history extending into her life like shadows. Unsettled yet emboldened, Jamie pushed back from her desk and paced her small apartment. Her thoughts raced like a torrent. She had to unravel this mystery, not just for herself but for her parents, each imperfect choice they had made leading to this juncture. Her fingers itched for the keys once more, her determination solidifying into an unyielding strength. With clarity struck in her heart, she grabbed an old notepad and started jotting down everything she knew: names, dates, occurrences. The surface rusted under the weight of her inquiries, bubbled with possibility. What if her family's past held a message waiting to be deciphered? As the shadows danced on the walls, the tension in her throat tightened like a noose, hungry for release. Each name she wrote transformed her simple act of research into a ritualistic confrontation between heritage and identity. Would her pursuit of truth illuminate her path forward or plunge her deeper into darkness? The stakes grew higher as she realized each line written was a step closer to confronting the ramifications of her heritage, but uncertainty still whispered in her ear. What if she discovered something about her grandparents that shattered her last tenuous ties to her childhood? Would she emerge transformed or become ensnared by the very thread she'd sought to unravel? Determination in her heart, Jamie took a deep breath, ready to confront the ambiguity of legacy versus truth. The first waves of doubt crashed around her. Would she stand resilient as the storm descended, or would she be swept away by the secrets lurking just beneath the surface? She could almost hear the beckoning call of her family's past, urging her to take that first step, even as it warned of the danger entwined within. Would she be prepared for the revelations ahead, regardless of whether they fortified or fractured her sense of self? The moment of truth loomed just before her, and despite the looming shadows, adrenaline thrummed in her veins. The challenge that lay ahead would not just demand her resilience, it would transform her very understanding of who she thought she was. For within the tangled web lay both the addiction to truth and the fear of what might be exposed. Jamie could feel the tension weaving through her muscles as she stared at the blank notepad spread before her. Each name and date she had scribbled earlier now felt like an acorn in the palm of her hand, a tiny seed that could sprout into something far more complex and, perhaps, perilous. The weight of her lineage loomed large, but it invigorated her, awakening senses she had buried for too long. She moved quickly, her fingers dancing over the keyboard as she searched for any references to her grandparents. Every link opened up a new vein of inquiry, each article and forum whispering fragments of stories long hidden. Photographs began to appear on her screen, black and white images of stoic faces and bright-eyed children, all seemingly disconnected from the life she had known. The first breakthrough came with an article titled "A Hidden Legacy: Prominent Families in a Tumultuous Time." Her heart raced as she recognized her grandmother's maiden name woven through the lines, describing influential figures embroiled in controversy. It was a world she had never imagined, her mind firing questions as she scanned for context. Did her grandparents intend to shield their children, or were they desperate to escape their turbulent past? She paused, the weight of her father's warning crashing over her like cold water. What if these discoveries brought more than just burden to bear? With a deep breath, she refocused, reminding herself that knowledge could be both weapon and shield. Each answer she unearthed would ultimately reshape her. It was a chance to emerge from the shadows of ignorance. That evening evolved into a relentless tunnel of research. Jamie dove into genealogy databases, historical archives, and local library resources. She photographed and saved everything: census records, obituaries, and even old newspaper articles. Patterns began to emerge against the backdrop of her family's narrative. Betrayal and courage mingled, crafting a backdrop that, while painful, felt liberatingly real. As the night wore on, a pattern wound its way around her discoveries. There was a trail of loss: a sister lost to circumstance, a family broken by secrets of involvement in a political scandal. The specter of some ancestor, now flashing in and out of focus, danced through her mind. What stories had they carried? Had they faced this same sense of dread? In her gut, she understood, this was not just about digging into the past but redefining her relationship with her own narrative. If her parents had concealed their heritage out of fear, she felt empowered to confront that fear head-on. Each thread she pulled revealed not just scars, but strength. A phone call from her father shattered her concentration. She hesitated before answering, her heart drumming nervously. "Jamie, I meant what I said earlier." His voice, tight and a bit shaky, made her pulse race. "There are things that could hurt you." Those words sent ice coursing through her. "I'm not afraid, Dad. I need to know." It was both a plea and a declaration. She was stepping into the light, defiantly claiming her truth. "Just promise you'll be cautious. Knowledge can be a weapon." She hung up, the unease in her chest battling with a resolve she could hardly contain. Her father's voice echoed in her mind, but the sting of authority only propelled her forward. With a deep sigh, she returned to her notes, her thoughts swirling like autumn leaves in a gust of wind. This was her journey toward self-discovery, and her past was a map. If she wished to navigate through the haze of uncertainty, she would have to embrace what lay ahead, no matter how tumultuous or illuminating. Outside, the moon hung low, casting pale shadows in her apartment. She could almost feel it pulling at her, urging her to delve deeper into her family's haunting history. Perhaps it was time to confront her parents, to ask the questions that had been waiting too long for answers. What awaited her when she stepped beyond this threshold of information? Would the truths she unearthed catalyze liberation or destruction? As another wave of determination surged through her, Jamie knew she had to uncover the whole truth, not just for herself, but for her ancestors, those silent voices begging to be heard. Her heart pounded as she braced herself for an impending confrontation. With renewed purpose, Jamie set her sights on the next phase. Tomorrow, she would speak to her father, no holds barred. She would unravel the lies, no matter how deeply rooted they were. The true test of her resilience was fast approaching, and with each tick of the clock, the call to know became louder. What revelations awaited her, and how would they reshape her life forever? Jamie was ready to find out. The morning sun filtered through the dusty blinds, cascading a warm glow across Jamie's cluttered desk. Each document she had gathered the night before felt charged with potential, an amalgamation of truth, secrets, and unresolved tensions. Flipping through her notes, she rehearsed the words she would confront her father with. The air was thick with anticipation, amplifying her resolve. As she stirred her coffee, Jamie's thoughts replayed her father's warning: knowledge can be a weapon. She knew he meant well, but she could feel the pull of the past urging her deeper. It propelled her forward like a current, demanding she unearth the buried truths. Once she was dressed, each piece of clothing felt heavier, as if it were woven from the weight of her lineage. Taking a steadying breath, she grabbed her notebook, the pages marked with countless questions waiting to erupt. Determined, she headed to her parents' house, every step steeped in both trepidation and excitement. Upon arriving, her heart raced as she crossed the threshold. The familiar scent of her mother's cooking wafted through the air, blending with notes of wood polish and aged photographs hung on the wall. How could such warmth pulsate in a house that held so many tangled secrets? Her parents were gathered in the living room, seemingly at ease. They exchanged glances, the worry in their eyes palpable. Jamie forced a casual demeanor, readying herself. "Can we talk?" she asked, the steadiness of her voice belied by the knot tightening in her stomach. Her father nodded, and they took seats at the worn coffee table, a battlefield of their collective lives. Jamie set her notebook down, her fingers brushing over the pages ineffectively. She needed to find a way to pierce the veil. "Dad, I found something," she started, the words spilling like water from a broken dam. "You and Mom have hidden things about our family, and I need you to tell me why." Her father's expression darkened, the tension creeping back into the room like shadows at dusk. "Jamie, you don't know what you're asking." "Try me," she said, feeling the simmering passion familiar to those moments when one's destiny demands to be addressed. The silence hung thick. Jamie scrutinized their faces, searching for clues of betrayal or love. Her mother's hands trembled slightly, and it triggered a fierce determination within her. "I've unearthed details, conspiracies, losses, things that were buried. I need context, honesty." "Some things are better left in the past," her father replied, his voice a low rumble, but Jamie could hear the cracks forming, pressure building within him. "Weren't you both terrified of what your past would mean for my future? This impacts me, and you protected me instead of confronting it with me." She watched a flicker of guilt cross her father's features, and it ignited a fire in Jamie. "No more secrets," she demanded. "This is not just about protecting me, it's about my identity. I can't shape my future without understanding my roots." Her father glanced at her mother, a silent exchange brimming with unsaid histories. Jamie leaned in, ready for a revelation. Slowly, he sighed deeply. "You're right. We owe you more than silence. But you must understand, it's a painful truth. Your grandparents' lives were complicated." Before she could react, her mother interjected, "It wasn't just political scandals, Jamie. It was about survival. Choices we thought were behind us." Her voice faltered, thick with emotion. Jamie felt her heart race as the fog of uncertainty began to clear. "You've never talked about them." "Why?" "Because we feared what it would do to you," her father confessed, his voice lower now, thick with the weight of years. "Our decisions were shaped by shame and the scars of history, yours as well as ours." As the pieces began to assemble, Jamie realized the pivotal moment she found herself in. Would she allow her parents to guide the narrative, or would she seize the pen? "Tell me everything," Jamie said, her tone steady yet vulnerable, echoing the heartbeat of her yearning for truth. The conversation intensified, brushing against the precipice of hidden fears and buried regrets. What truths awaited her from the lips of those who had always been her protectors? Would she find solace or be unraveled by the revelations? As her father began to speak, Jamie could feel a shift in the ground beneath her feet, her past tugging insistently at her consciousness, and the desire to reshape her identity growing stronger. Those family secrets would not stay locked away for long. What would she discover that would reshape her very being? The unfolding conversation was a storm inside Jamie's mind, every sentence from her parents striking like thunderclaps against her resolve. She felt the gravity of their secrets tugging at the threads of her identity, and with every word her father spoke, a fissure opened wider into the past she had never known. Jamie listened, her heart pounding in response to revelations, truths that felt both foreign and eerily familiar. "Your grandparents made choices that put family above all else," her father began, voice trembling under the weight of shame. "They sacrificed everything, including us, for a different kind of survival, a survival defined by the ghosts of their choices." He paused, rubbing the back of his neck, a habitual gesture of regret. Jamie's thoughts pivoted. She had always associated her grandparents with stories of success and strength, not ghosts and sacrifice. Where did that leave her? "Do you understand?" He continued, "What they did, the people they hurt, it all spirals into the lives we have now. The way we raised you, the choices we made, the intention was to protect you from the consequences of our history." Protect? The word echoed in her mind like a dull ache. Jamie's gaze remained steady on her father, even as her emotions churned beneath the surface. "But that protection came at what cost? My right to know who I am?" "No." Her mother's voice shattered the growing tension. "We thought we knew what was best for you. Keeping you away from that darkness, but it's not your decision to make." Jamie interjected, feeling the swell of indignation rise in her chest. "I deserve to understand the foundation of my identity, even if it's painful." At that moment, Jamie felt that rush of adrenaline coursing through her veins, an awakening of sorts. She wasn't merely the product of her family's legacy, she was determined to take the reins of her own narrative. Jamie wanted not just to confront pain but to reshape it into something empowering. She was not only battling her parents' past but also breaking free from the chains that bound her to their choices. Look, every generation has to carry the burden of its predecessors, Jamie asserted, her voice steady yet fierce. It's time I carry my own, but I can't do that without the truth. Her father met her gaze, shadows of doubt flickering in his eyes. Jamie, you don't realize that knowing can sometimes be worse than living in ignorance. Then let me decide that for myself, she breathed, the weight of conviction settling firmly in her chest. She wasn't sure what the truth would look like, but perhaps it would offer the clarity she craved. A single decision, accept or reject the past, could redefine her path forward. As the words settled into the narrowing silence, Jamie felt a new resolve igniting within her. She reached for the notebook, flipping to a blank page. Let us start with what we've hidden. I want every detail, every choice that was made. This is my path now, and I need to carve it with the tools you give me. Her parents exchanged a worried glance, but she couldn't afford to dwell on their fears. Transparency would lay the groundwork for trust, and it was high time she demanded both from the people she loved. I am not asking for your approval, Jamie continued, scribbling her thoughts with fervor. I'm taking control of my narrative. What happened to your parents, your choices that impacts me? If I am to stand, I need to stand on solid ground. Her father's shoulders sagged as he began to speak again, words spilling forth like a river breaking free from a dam. Jamie leaned forward, the urgency in her mind racing against the rhythmic pattern of her father's recounting. She was ready, emotionally fortified, to confront the truths of her lineage. But as her father's story unfolded, Jamie sensed the flicker of danger. What if these revelations carried with them burdens she had never anticipated? Moments of shame, betrayal, the unfilmed chapters of her family's history. What if they turned against her? The revelation was just the beginning, and with it came the pressing weight of not just her heritage, but the responsibility of what came next. Would she emerge unscathed, or would the ghosts of her family demand more than she was prepared to give? As Jamie leaned in, the weight of her father's words struck with an intensity that startled her. Each revelation felt like an unraveling thread, pulling at the intricately woven fabric of her identity. The discomfort, once vague, now crystallized into a palpable urgency within her. The noise of the world faded, leaving her alone with her thoughts, a cacophony of questioning and determination. I need names. I need contexts, Jamie pressed, her pen scratching against the paper like a lifeline being thrown into turbulent waters. Who hurt us? What did they do? Her father glanced at her mother, uncertainty clouding their expressions. It struck Jamie then that her parents were as much caught in the web of their family's history as she was. It's not always as simple as right and wrong, Jamie, her mother said, hesitantly stepping into the conversation. There were reasons for every decision laid out in a context you can't fully understand. Jamie's resolve hardened. Then explain it to me. Help me see the picture. With a deep breath, her father began. There was always a fear of failing, stemming from our parents' struggles. They made choices driven by desperation that spiraled down to us. As he spoke, Jamie scribbled, trying to catch every nuance, every hidden meaning behind the words. The act felt empowering, she was actively defining both her inquiries and the direction of the conversation. Yet doubt lingered like a shadow over her thoughts. What would she find at the end of this journey? Were there horrors that would be too burdensome to bear? Throughout the endless stream of details, names of distant relatives involved in various transgressions, ramifications that echoed through generations, Jamie began to feel a sensation building within her. A fierce determination intertwined with dread. This clarity she sought came with a cost. Each name revealed dragged her deeper into the labyrinth of her lineage and the choices made in silence. Her father paused, a flicker of emotion crossing his face. I hope you understand what you're asking for. Some of this could change how you see us, how you see everything. I need to know my reality, Jamie insisted, her voice steady. I owe it to myself not to live in the shadows of some past I barely understand. If I am to build my future, it must start with the truth, however jagged it may be. The atmosphere thickened, her parents clearly weighing her words against their fears of the ramifications. Jamie could hear the rapid beating of her own heart, a rhythmic reminder that the stakes were high. This wasn't merely a family history lesson, this was the genesis of her own identity, redefined. As the last of the evening light spilled through the window, illuminating the handwritten notes scattered across the table, Jamie couldn't shake the feeling that she was at the edge of a precipice. Every new detail pushed her closer to the edge of understanding her parents' choices while also confronting her own fragmentary identity in relation to that history. "Where do we go from here?" she asked, a challenge in her tone. Jamie was ready to carve her path out of the depths of the history she had unearthed. The trajectory of her life hung in the balance of her next choices. Her father's mouth opened, but he hesitated. "Understanding your roots may lead you to uncomfortable places, Jamie," he finally said. "Yes," she replied, the word infused with conviction. "But it's a journey I must embark on." The shadows that flickered along the walls mirrored her turmoil as Jamie contemplated the deeper implications of guiding her own narrative. There were moments she would have to confront not just with her heritage, but the effects these truths could have on her relationship with her parents. The thought of what was yet to come loomed large as Jamie closed her notebook, feeling both exhilarated and terrified. The next chapter of her journey was ready to be written, but the path forward was obscured by fog and uncertainty. And as she glanced toward her parents, she sensed the weight of the next conversation looming on the horizon. Ready to challenge everything she had come to believe about love, loyalty, and self. Would they truly support her on this path of discovery, or would the secrets binding them slip further into shadows? Jamie realized with a jolt that the real test was not only what she was willing to learn but how far she was prepared to challenge them and the two different worlds they now belonged to. With resolve swelling in her chest, Jamie turned to face her parents, the gravity of their shared history pressing down like a heavy cloak. The lines of their faces told stories of unspoken pain and hidden truths, and now it was time to confront the fraught narrative they had spun together. "We need to continue," she urged, her voice steady and unwavering. "These secrets can't just sit in the dark anymore. I'm willing to confront whatever it is you're fearful will come to light." Both her father and mother exchanged looks that communicated their anxiety, but there was something different in the room. A current of understanding lingered beneath Jamie's words, the recognition that the secrets held power, not only to bind them but also to liberate them. The choices of their past had driven them to silence, yet it was in this moment of vulnerability that the possibility for honesty took root. Her father, after a moment's hesitation, leaned forward, a trembling hand reaching for his own notes, information he had prepared for tonight. "You're right. Let us start peeling back the layers," he said, a note of resignation settling in his tone. Jamie could see he was ready to reveal what had haunted him for so long. "Your grandparents were involved in networks that put family loyalty at odds with ethical choices," he began, his voice strained but powerful. "The business they operated was dangerous, intertwined with power and manipulation. They made choices based on survival instincts that sometimes led to betrayal, selfishness, even violence." Jamie absorbed his words, processing the implications that filled the air. This was no longer merely a clash of opinions between her and her parents, it became a reckoning with her family's darker heritage, a legacy steeped in moral complexities and transgressions. "What does that mean for us?" Jamie demanded, insistent yet vulnerable. "What does it mean for who I am?" Her mother squeezed her father's hand, their connection a fragile lifeline in the whirlwind of truths unveiled. "It means that our upbringing was shaped by fear. Fear of justice, of consequence. The world we hoped to protect you from was convoluted and shadowy. We didn't prepare you for it, thinking ignorance would shield you. In a twisted way, it was our attempt to give you a normal childhood," her father added, voice heavy with guilt. "We didn't want you to carry the weight of our mistakes." "But at what cost?" Jamie interjected, frustration igniting in her tone. "What about my right to know where I came from? To forge my own identity, free of deception?" The silence bore down, raw and heavy, until finally, her mother spoke. "Forgiveness is part of this journey too, Jamie. You may have to reconcile with their actions as you discover your own path forward." As Jamie contemplated this, an unexpected warmth surged through her, a sense of liberation accompanied the weight of the revelations. For the first time, she understood that dealing with her family's history marked by shadows of betrayal could also lead her towards clarity and healing. "I want to ensure my narrative is authentic," Jamie stated, her voice resolute. "The stories I want to tell can't be built on silence, they must be rooted in truth, however uncomfortable." With that declaration, she took control of the pen, her life unfurling like a scroll that had long been hidden away, each dot and dash connecting to pieces of her ancestry. The layers of secrecy began to emerge, interlacing love with punishment, affection with fear, illuminating the divided path of generations under her scrutiny. The conversation continued through the evening, stitching together a tapestry of truths, half-truths, and revelations. In the unraveling of what once made up her family's identity, Jamie felt a sense of cohesion. Knowledge became her ally rather than her enemy. It fortified her conviction to pursue the stories of unspoken struggles, to chronicle the legacies that shaped not just her parents but countless others. As night fell and the shadows deepened around them, Jamie's heart swelled with pride. For all the turmoil she had faced in her past, she now felt equipped to confront it headlong. This was not simply about uncovering family secrets but reclaiming her narrative as a journalist and an individual. Stepping away from the confines of unawareness, Jamie stood at the precipice of her future, rooted in her past yet ready to bloom. She had transformed anger into purpose and despair into clarity. Jamie no longer felt hollow, she was fueled by the stories that awaited her, waiting to be told with unwavering strength. In defining her identity and confronting her lineage, she found a sense of belonging not dictated by the fear of abandonment but by the understanding that her strength could rise from the ashes of her family's choices. This was an ascendance, a personal evolution born from tumultuous revelations. Jamie stepped out into the cool night, invigorated, ready to embrace the challenges that lay ahead, eager to mold the truth as both an anchor and a launchpad. And as she took the first steps towards her new chapter, one thing became clear: Jamie wasn't just uncovering her family's secrets, she was fiercely claiming her own identity, weaving a vibrant tapestry from threads spun long before her time. Unlock the doors of your past, it may grant you the truest understanding of your future. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, your support makes a difference. Comment with your thoughts and theories about Jamie's journey and how it resonates in your own life. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of sharing wisdom and strength.